we're going to be talking about navigating the AI journey. So, welcome.
It's great to be on.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Good as well, thank you. Okay, so I guess we can dive right in with the questions. So, I'll start with for beginners in AI, what are some practical steps or resources that you recommend to get started?
There is a so if you want to get involved from a technical perspective, it's well worth getting upskilled in whether it be Python, which is the most popular language used AI for AI tools, or similar. That is good. If it's more in the industry and the space, you might want to look at tech companies, startups, scale ups, or even corporates who have an AI team, AI strategy, maybe AI division. And if it's you're already at a company and you want to look at how you could consider deploying AI or uses, is to start reading journals and reviews, blogs, listening to a great number of content from podcasts and elsewhere to see how you can apply it. So it's trying your best to sort of immerse yourself into it. I would say it might be worth knowing or talking about what type of AI. So I think most are now interested in Gen AI or generative AI, which is large language models, which is in essence using natural language, like you type away and then it gets you responses and so forth. That is, it's only been 18 months since we've had GPT and now a few other options. So you're new to it, like everyone else is. And there's no, despite the noise and rhetoric and press releases, everyone is sort of figuring this out as well. So we're at the very, very early stages of this. So there's no reason to think that you're late or anything like that. This is here, it's here to stay, and it's here to stay for the long term. So if you are looking to get involved, it's a good thing to do so. There's a distinction to be made between sort of maybe the predecessor or what my first company was focusing on, which is more machine learning and computer vision or narrow AI. So 12 years ago, my first company, Onfido, we do identity checks. We check a photo of your passport against your face, and that is computer vision and machine learning. Is this fraudulent or not? And so there are different ways of looking at AI, but most are looking at what the exciting latest is Gen AI or generative AI.
Yeah, that's crazy that it's been around only for 18 months. Feels like
Gen AI
longer.
has been, yeah. AI as a whole is a good 60 years, but
Yeah,
different building blocks that have helped
yeah,
it deliver and become such a powerful tool is or accessible because of natural language is November or 18 months ago.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then my next question would be in a rapidly evolving AI landscape. So, what are some strategies or approaches that you suggest to professionals to continuously upscale their skills and their knowledge?
It is, as with most things, you tend to learn by doing. So if there's any way to start experimenting, trialing, so if you're sort of new to this space and it's on a technical front, see if you could run a simple project or in some way be involved in a hackathon that leverages Gen AI in one way or another. If you're part of a startup or scale up, it's good to, if you have the choice, to join one that is actually using Gen AI in a significant way. It's hard to find any startup now that doesn't say in one way or another that they're using Gen AI. So a good test is if it's Gen AI native, it's most likely to be have formed in the last 18 months. Not necessarily, but most likely. If it's prior to 18 months from now, it means they've likely pivoted in one way or another. And so it's to be mindful that if it's Gen AI native, it's likely to be on a young company of 18 months or so. And thirdly, if you're part of a corporate where you want to deploy AI, some of the things you could do is communities, like-minded people, workshops. I was at one last week, the AI and Future of Work conference. Actually, it's in my calendar. I can remind myself. Yeah, it was aiworkandskills.com is an example, and there are many others. You guys run workshops and meetups. you'll find them in most cities. So it's to go and get a sense of what's happening and get involved where you can. And that's how you tend to learn the best.
Yeah. And I also think there are some websites that you can join projects that are happening for like NGOs or other companies, and you can join and work with other people on these projects, AI related projects, which is also nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, and then transitioning careers to AI can seem daunting, especially how much it has been changing lately. Could you outline some of the effective strategies or pathways for individuals to make that change? So,
Sure. First, there's probably a difference if it's like on a technical front versus not. Technical maybe sometimes more straightforward because there's just some key skills that you need to learn. You can do those at boot camps and different sort of skills training programs, and that's good. If it's on the non-technical side, then it's sort of like you can't really transition into AI in the sense of it's like transitioning into the internet. It's more transitioning into an organization that is more anchored to the important role that Gen AI will play.
okay.
And in order to have a view as to when you're assessing different organizations or different projects to get involved with, it does help to have an understanding of the capability of essentially what Gen AI can do and can't do. I can say for our space, for instance, there's a healthy amount of activity around how Gen AI will help evolve learning.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different perspectives and a whole range of different approaches. So, for instance, but we are quite clear in that our North Star is precision. We look at organizations having gone from the yellow pages, everything was text-based and like a booklet, all the way to the transition into the Google keyword searches, internet-based. And now there's going to be a third stage, which is like Gen AI companies. There'll be vector embeddings and essentially a new way for employees or users to interface with this new paradigm of how organizations are going to structure their information. And in our view, in order to do so, everything's going to be query-based. And so how does an organization structure its content in order to make it amenable, accessible to users looking to query it and query it often? And for us, precision is going to be key. It will have to be custom models to avoid hallucinations, accuracy issues. And it will have to basically be trained on the private content of the organization. So it's less about go and extract the latest project information for me. It's more a case of I'm in marketing and not in the legal team. Extract that project information to me with reasoning as to why you picked how to describe it in one way or another, or it's reason why it's relevant for me in marketing versus me in legal. And so that's just like a flavor around you. As you go to consider different organizations, you want to ask, what is your approach to Gen AI? How does it add value? How is it, in essence, what's the core differentiator and defensible moats that you're working on? And what's your whole thesis around in 3 to 5 years where this is going to end up? A lot of companies and individuals, when they're considering sort of transitioning either a company path or a career path, spend a bit too much getting bogged down on this company, that company, what sounds or looks better. I think a much better way is if one upskills themselves in what the capabilities are and what the different views and theories are around how industries are going to change. And there's so much content on online.
Okay.
Then you develop a view to say, okay, in 5 years from now, the video entertainment media industry is going to be this. The education, the learning space is going to be this. The pharmaceutical industry is going to be whatever you predict that 5-year period to be. Then the question for you is, which company is working or which career path is best working towards getting you to that sort of ultimate and outcome. So for instance, there is a lot of concern in film, media, just generally, and that there is going to be, if my career was sort of a sound editor and sort of in video content, entertainment content that normally goes to Netflix, some might be concerned that, hey, is this going to mean Gen AI going to mean my roles become less relevant? I don't think so. I think, for instance, if one looks at I think we're going to move towards a brand new renaissance and a tremendous amount of fresh content
Yeah.
being produced. So what's going to happen is the cost to produce more content is going to go right down. So if it costs $100 million to have a Netflix blockbuster series right now, in the coming years, it's likely to be $1 million or less. I mean, that's like a prediction. It's an example of
Yeah.
one person in his career, what they would think of. Now, when the cost of production goes down, that means a sound editor might be working on one project for 2 years, but soon they'll be working on one project every 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
because the cost is going to go down, that means then the sheer number of stories and series and movies and everything's going to exponentially grow.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, for instance, if I prefer dogs to cats, I might get a copy of a series that now has a cat in it instead of a dog, for instance. So that will
Really.
mean
That's
that the
nice.
demand, that the demand for anyone involved in the production and fine tuning of video entertainment, it's going to actually shoot up. And that means probably not for actors or voice actors or certain skills,
Mhm.
they'll lose that premium cost or essentially the salaries that they get. But for those who provide the infrastructure around it, I think it's going to be, there's a lot of concern in that space, and there really shouldn't be. Like they're
Mhm.
about to be as hot as AI engineers soon, for instance. And so you might not want to transition out to that industry. You might want to just think, hey, in 5 years' time, what's it going to look like, and then anchor to that accordingly. So it's not dissimilar from the space I'm in. Like these are trainers and teachers.
Yeah.
There's one set of trainers and teachers that think Gen AI is going to come and like replace us. But that's I don't think that's going to happen. I'm from a family of teachers. My dad's a lecturer. My mother and elder sister are teachers. The best teachers, trainers, mentors, coaches, they're going to become in much greater demand over the coming years. But
Mhm.
AI, it's not a question of will AI replace them. It's a case of how can you get the right mix of these human trainers and AI. AI is
Yeah.
going to now help them achieve far more. So instead of a sales trainer going into a company and only being able to develop 10 people, they now soon will be able to develop 50 or 100 people in a much more
Yeah.
scalable way by having an AI twin of themselves, so that the AI twin can be queried and run role plays, and then the human steps in when there's sort of a gap and something. Equally, workforce employees are all likely to have an AI coach helping them with the different skills and everything that they want. So the best advice around if one is looking at a career in AI and whether a transition, how to map a transition, is more based on the unique insights that you have and supplemented with what you can read and sort of learn online. Have a prediction of what 3 to 5 years might look like and position yourself in a way that can most effectively sort of develop the skills you need for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think AI will make everything a lot more scalable. And I think a lot of people nowadays are like scared, like you said, of, I don't know, losing their job for AI. But I think the point is working with AI to make
Yeah,
everything more efficient.
and so many, and there are examples of this in the past. So when typewriters first came, it meant that more companies started to solve more problems using typewriters. So if
Mhm.
it was previously by hand, it meant that they'd only produce like an annual reports. Now it meant typewriters could be used for your accounting, for weekly memos. So the demand for skills of clerks and others working on typewriters went 10x up. And so typewriters coming in didn't eliminate the need for people to sort of type away. It just grew that need for that demand
Yeah.
tenfold. But at the same time, those who were skilled in sort of pen craftsmanship or writing with hand,
Mhm.
that became essentially redundant.
Yeah.
And there are as it goes back to my point, like we're so early in this, we're sort of 18 months. It's going to be with us for decades and centuries to come. It's some of the predictions that we see online don't seem to be accurate to me. The movie one or the entertainment one is an example. It's going to be counter.
Mhm.
It's not going to remove this industry. It's going to be a
Yeah.
renaissance for this industry. Learning and where we are, it's not going to replace trainers and teachers. It's going to make the best ones actually far more productive, far more efficient. And it's like that for most other spaces. So it's mostly a challenge of thinking through what the future is going to look like and then positioning yourself accordingly. But regardless of things that are universal, regardless of what you end up doing across any vertical, any sector, the ability to learn effectively and learn fast is going to become increasingly important. So if you
Yeah.
have 20 years in marketing experience, that premium might be far less relevant than someone that maybe only 2 years experience, but they're very quick to learn. They have an AI coach that can help them upskill in new ways within a matter of days, if not weeks. That might become increasingly impressive or sought after for, like say, employers. Equally, one already, it's sort of Gen AI can do a good job of like brainstorming and persuasive writing and copywriting and things like that. That camp it can do well. BCG, Boston Consultancy Group, ran a study across 750 of their consultants, and those are the things that were great. There's another area which is around problem solving, which it tends not to be able to do well, especially if it's complex problem solving. So this is another example where if you're 20 years in marketing listening to this, you might think, oh no, like I might be in trouble because, you know, in 2-3 years, I'm going to have to compete with like people with 2 years experience. Not necessarily, because judgment and the ability to reason and the ability to solve complex problems isn't something Gen AI necessarily will be able to do relatively easily. What it's going to be able to do is help you 20 minutes before an important meeting, get upskilled quite quickly and get relevant insights to help you make informed decisions, important complex ones in particular. It won't be making those decisions in your place. So these are the types of ways that the workforce is changing, and it will make for quite an interesting few years ahead.
Yeah. And then for my last question, going off of what you were saying about the challenges, so what are some of the common challenges or misconceptions that people face when getting into AI, and how can they be addressed?
Part of it is getting caught up in hype, and there is a tendency to, so that well, basically there are very many companies in the space, right? So not yet, but in a year or two, depending on the industry, like I'm talking about the learning one that I'm familiar with, learning and AI. In the next 12 to 18 months or thereabouts, it's going to become clear which approaches are actually the right ways of doing this and which ones aren't. By definition, that means there's only going to be a handful that sort of make it essentially, and the others won't. Now, the others who don't will start to copy and adapt the ones who are, or they'll basically no longer be in existence. And that means it doesn't guarantee that you're part of a success story if you just jump onto and quit and join a startup that is saying that they use AI in one way or another. The statistics and the numbers say the vast majority won't exist in the coming years. And that's why that's something to essentially partly bear in mind. We saw this wave. If you go 12 years ago, at the beginning of my first startup, there was an on-demand space, the Uber for everything, cleaners, nannies, tutors, doctors, whatever. And some of them, like an on-demand cleaning business, HomeJoy, achieved a $40 billion valuation. $40 billion is a lot of money. But it was essentially a glorified cleaning business, the same cleaning business that you call and you get frustrated with every weekend when you want to book them to come over. What happened was, after a period, it emerged that only the ones that had like a GPS component with a human did well. Like that's taxis or Uber and deliveries, or like delivery. The majority of those, some exist and some are wonderful, but they didn't. The models didn't work out. Fast forward 5 years, there's like neobanks, and many of them, only a handful survived. So it's same with AI. There's a rush to it. There's noise, and then sort of the best approaches will bear out, and only they will survive. So a common mistake is jumping into an AI company and thinking you're guaranteed success. You certainly aren't. Another mistake is thinking I'm in a movie business, I better get out because this is not going to be appealing. I think you're going to regret that. It's going to be one of the most incredible places to be in the coming years, just entertainment, video-based in particular.
Yeah, I agree. There are many new companies right now, and people think it's sure success, but there are so many as well that it's impossible to know what is going to work.
But that's the fun, right? It's a tough and competitive space, and surely that makes it more exciting when the winners emerge. So that it's like who made the right calls, who made the right predictions. I think part of the excitement is the fact that it's tough and crowded.
Yeah, and it's also new, like you said. So it's not like people have years of experience. So anyone can get in, right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's it for our Q&A today. Thank you so much. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
It's been a wonderful series of questions. There's nothing really to add other than this. For those who are worried, there was reasons to worry in previous technological cycles when the internet came, and I mentioned the typewriters and other things. But for the most part, if you are in the tech space and you are, which by definition tends to be more agile, and you're interested in learning this space, it will be well worth the returns, because this is not here. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. And just even being curious and thinking about like career transitions must be exciting. So yeah, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. And I think it was very informative. I think I also learned a lot.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.